Hey, good morning, everybody. I am going to go over the individual stock ETFs first today, and then I'm going to go over ULTY, but I'm going to still keep those as separate videos. And I have a couple of emails from Jay to let you know about as we go. One topic in here, and a couple of them have to do with the other videos, so I'll try to keep that with that one. But anyway, so let me just start this out by I always request for you to give me any suggestions to make these videos better. I had one person reach out to me today and they provided a lot of feedback. Of course, I wasn't at home and I was out and about. And he's provided a lot of good points, or she. I'm sorry, I could be had the wrong gender there. But I'm going to take that, dissect it, any of the other suggestions that people have made. I'm going to write all these things down and see how I can implement these. And I think I did say this on like one of the 3 videos I did yesterday that I take for granted, like if you're coming over to watch my videos from Retire on Dividends or Max, especially one of those two, that you already have an understanding of how, these synthetics work and the weeklies work and, where the strike prices should be as as comparison, when we're actually looking at that underlying stock price. So, I understand that this possibility it's not the case, or you've listened but it's just not sinking in because I might have had some of those same issues. And with me trying to cover so many tickers and all the trades and all the holdings, I mean, at first this was taking me 20-30 minutes, and then it's taken longer and longer every time I turn around. So it's not like I could cover these every single time. So I might find one of Rod's videos to link and that you could watch, or eventually maybe create one of my own. That way, if you don't understand how some of this works, then you can, understand that part first and then come back and watch these, so then you can have a little bit of understanding. And the other thing was, because there's so many here and you can sort of see the data, I don't go into and tell you, like on here, AIYY. That first line is our synthetic call, right? And then there's the option date with our strike price, meaning that we want the AI stock 35.87. We really don't want it to go above. Well, I'm sorry, I'm talking about the synthetic here. So we actually do want ours above that price for the synthetic. And then, but for our weekly call, we wanted to stay under the strike price for the weekly call, right? So I know I don't go through this each individual one. So that's why I want to try to do a separate video, so I don't have to do it every single time and go over them. Just like on the right side, right? Our total cost for that first line, well, 55,000 is actually what was made on that trade, and on the next line, well, we had to pay out 55,000, and in the next line we paid out 80,000. I do have like a total cost. You can see it quickly over here on the left. So the total cost of the trades for the day in this case was 7,800. So I guess I'll try to use this one as a quick example here at the top. As far as cumulative money that they've made, I do not have that yet. And again, I do not even have the data for this last month to even try to estimate for this next payout next week. So I won't have that either. But I am trying to work on, you know, going back and trying to do a roll up sheet of all the earnings and how much was made and all those things I know that y'all want to see. I'm going to try to have that for next month. I just don't have that right now because I have to build all this stuff from scratch, right? So it does take time. And then trying to figure out how you want to do it. And like these spreadsheets took me a while to even get it somewhat to what I wanted, and it still may not be. But anyway, so that's going off a little bit there. And then, like over here, I come over here and I say, okay, AIYY, this is the price it closed at. Because I don't know if people want to go look these up or if they even do. So I just sort of read those. It's here, but I just try to point out the main things on here. So, like here, the AI stock price closed at 35.87. And then our weekly call, I definitely point that out. So it's at 39, and we want, it's okay for the stock AI to appreciate up to, you know, $39 over the week. We just really don't want it to go over it, only because, we want it to capture, we want to capture as much of the upside as possible on there. So that's why we really don't want it to go over 39. I mean, it's not gonna, it's not really gonna kill us, I guess, but we'd prefer for it not to go over that. But for the synthetic, that $35 there, we would prefer for it to stay over that. So we're really wanting it to stay between like that 35, 39 range. But then it can get, sorry, I had a message. But then when you have multiple strike prices, right, then there's, you have multiple ranges in there. And then, of course, you can see here are the treasuries that they have, and how many or how much money is there, what that market value is. And I don't point out the synthetics every single time here, but you can see them. And then, of course, you can see the cash they have. And in fact, this is negative 620, so there's possibility that they're going to be selling out of some of these contracts to cover that negative cost. They don't always do it immediately, but again, I'm new at reviewing these, so we'll see. And then you see on the left, I do have like the net assets. If you want to see them, I have the shares outstanding. I have what the weekly call value is on the right, so you don't have to manually add it up if you wanted to. But again, I don't have a cumulative on here. This is really just at this point, just sort of hopefully quickly reviewing, a couple of stock prices, our strike prices, where we're at, were there any trades, did we make any money that day or lose money? It's just me getting familiar with this and being able to share this and doing this in a mass, right? To be able to do this for every single ETF. Unlike Retire on Dividends, he's able, because he has chosen a couple. Well, he started out with one, and then it's two, and now it's three. But he started out and he just got really in depth into it. And that's not where this is, at least not yet. It is a process, and like I said, I've been given some suggestions. I think most of the suggestions I was given was for ULTY, but I'd have to reread through all of it because I was actually in the middle of doing stuff in plans. But there was lots of great information. So keep it coming if you have things, and like I said, I will read through and figure out how to be able to add in some of these things. But I do have to also make it to where I can get through these videos in a quickly, timely manner every day. But I also want them to be relevant too. So, always provide me your feedback. Like I said, I read through all of them. I respond to them. I make notes for them. And it's just that this isn't my only job, right? So it just takes some time. But I just wanted to go over a few of those things there. And then I didn't even go in depth on here, of course. And just, I'm going to let you know up front, this is going to be a long video. This is the end of the week video. We have closed out a lot of positions. We've opened up lots of new positions. There's lots going on, and we're talking about 18 or so. I don't even know how many tickers we're up to now. Maybe 19 tickers or ETFs. So this is a lot of information. I expect this, at least the weekend videos, to be an hour. I would literally like for during the week videos to stay under 30 minutes. But of course, if you don't want to, I'm not saying sit here and, oh, you need to listen to this whole thing unless you want to, because you don't have anything else to do, you know. Or if you just want to see certain tickers, just go, fast forward until you can see that we're going over that ticker. And then, like I said, if I hear stuff throughout the day, if I'm listening to podcasts, then I try to put that on here, that if I know one thing did something or another, I try to, but I'm not out there trying to research every single one of these either every day to see what's happened, before doing this. But if I do know something, I will let you know. Which is a lot easier for these versus the ones that are under ULTY, the Ultra option. And there was something else I was going to say. But I don't know, but I'm going to get on into this. My iPad's actually probably going to die at some point, and I don't have any way to charge it. So let me go back to AIYY, because what I did skip up here is my highlights. I try to go through and review this a little bit and highlight the main things that to draw my eyes to some of these fairly quickly. So here on AIYY, we closed out 150 contracts. Some of these were, I guess, brand new ones. Let's see. I did not look at that because I barely looked at these. Yeah, it looks like these were brand new ones, but I guess they ended up having to close them out because of the cash. So yeah, they just opened those on the 29th, and then on the 1st they had to close out 150. So based on listening to Rod's videos, Retire on Dividends, I think the assumption is here is, that they ended up having to close them out because people were selling out of some of them, which, like I said a while ago, if you look over here, it's still negative 620,000 in the hole for their cash pot here. So that makes sense, but it looks like they probably need to cash out some more to cover that. I'm not sure. I have no clue on why or when and how they decide that they want to do all that. It'd be cool for me to know that, because I like the processes, right? I am a military person, so I like to know the standard operating process, the SOP on that. But that's just because I like the inner workings of things, and I like to know how everything works. But anyway, that's what happened here. That cost us $7,800, and then we had already went through our holdings for next week. All the rest of this stuff, though, I'm going to go through, and I'm going to briefly go through them for now. And then eventually, over the next month or so, I'm sure, hopefully, I can get more of a rhythm and a battle rhythm with how I want to do them, and also continue to make those changes as we go forward to make this relevant for everybody. But we're going to move on to AMDY. So we see here we have a lot of closed positions. They have closed out, and that's one thing I didn't check because I was not home when I was looking at these. They did fully close out the March 15th synthetics. So that's what this was. They completely closed all of those out, and they opened brand new ones for May 17th. So we were at 4,905 shares, and now those synthetics are at 4,565. So we've reduced those a little bit, and then you see that they, damn, that sucks. Let me go up here because I want to look at these. So when they closed out AIYY, it was, okay, that one was okay. But AMDY here, these strike prices that they had to close out for the weekly calls. Anyway, so I'm jumping around because I'm not totally organized. So the first two lines are call put that was supposed to expire March 15th, was closed. And if you look all the way to the right, so on that first line, they received $11.2 million to close that out. So that's great. On the next one, our put, it cost them a little over, $500,000 to close that one out, but they still netted over $10 million just to close that synthetic out. And then on the next one, if you look at when they opened those synthetics there, so for the call portion, it costs them $9.4 million, but on the put, they brought in $7.6 million. So in the end, that's opening that synthetic only cost them roughly $2 million, less than like 1.8 million. But they also made almost, 11 million on the other one. So they did really good with these synthetics. They made some money off of those, which is good, because when we look down to the weekly calls that they closed out, those weekly call strike prices were $182.50 and $185. Two of them expired today. One of them was to expire next week. But if you look over on the left, AMD closed at 202.64. So we were $20 on one of the strike prices, and the other one a little bit, a few less than $20. So that cost us quite a bit to close out. So if you look over on the right, that first one with the 1,190 contracts, that cost 2.1 million. And the next line, the 3,408 contracts, that cost 5.5 million. And the next one at the 235 contracts, that cost us another half a million. So yeah, those cost us a lot to close out. I guess they were hoping that AMD was going to come back down before the end of the week. And since I've been out of the loop the past few days with crazy things going on, I don't even know why the semiconductors necessarily were, the chips, sorry. I don't know why the chips were, because it was AMD and NVIDIA, if I recall correctly, that started taking off one day. Sorry, I don't know what the story was behind that. But anyway, we'll go to this last line. They opened up a new weekly call for next week. So it'll expire next Friday, and the strike price is $215. But, so if we take all of our costs over here on the right, in the end, we still ended up coming out in the positive and gained $1.7 million. But we were really, really hurt on those weekly calls, but those synthetics saved us here. It's usually that way, one way or the other, right? So anyway, so that was a lot to go through there. So then if we go over to the holdings, we can see that AMDY closed at 23.62. Again, AMD closed at 202.64. And we can see over on the right, we had these new synthetics of the $200 strike price. I did mention, I just didn't remember. Yeah, I didn't mention the price there. But it was $200 is the new for May. And then we have our, I can do this because we're not on the ULTY video yet. For those on your cell phone. Sorry about that. I know it's harder to see on the cell phone. Okay. Dang it. Undo. Okay. So our weekly call, we have a 215 strike price this week. Right now, that's the only one that we have, and so we're $12.36 away from that. And then something I just thought about, because something was mentioned about this too. So on this, when we're looking at the trades tab and those costs, that's what was paid. That's what they actually paid to make those trades. When we're on the holdings tab, where it has the market value, I'm assuming that's at close of the day. That was the market value of these is at close. I could be wrong. I don't really know. I haven't asked that specific question, but my assumption would be is if they would have closed these out at the close, this is how much they would have either, lost or received from it, right? So like the synthetic here, if they had closed it out at the close, I'm assuming, again, assuming at the close, that they would have made $2 million off of it. And for the weekly trade, they would have lost $913,000. I don't really know what time of the day that this market value is being calculated on, right? I guess somebody that knows how to go look that up and has that Thinkorswim or whatever where you can look at past data. I guess I'll have to learn that at some point, because but anyway, that's the other video. But just wanted to go over that on the right, since I did not go over that earlier. So let's go over to AMZ, because most of these are probably going to have a trade. So I didn't even go through and write down who had trades and who didn't, because most of these probably had trades. So if we go to AMZ here, they closed out again, I didn't look, but I'm wondering if they closed out all of the March Sorry, I'm usually a little bit more prepared than this. But if I come over here, and then let's clear this. Let's say we only want to look at our synthetics. This will make it easier because then I'll know from here on out. Ooh, it does look like. Alright. Well, I guess it's not going to be that cut and dry because looking at the holdings here, it looks like they do still have some synthetics on the books for March 15th for some of these funds. Okay. I was just wondering there for a second if maybe they've closed all of them out, but that will not be the case. So, but at least we'll know that now, and I won't just assume. So in this case, they closed out the synthetics, and then of course the weekly calls that expired today. And let's look at those. We had strike prices of $175 and $177.50, and our Amazon close price was $178.22. So our Amazon price, at least at close, was over our strike prices. Now, I don't know at what time of the day they closed these out, right? It could have been earlier today. The Amazon stock could have been, a totally different price when these close these out. I just know what they did sometime today and then what our close price was. But you can look over here on the right and you can see how much per share they either had to pay or how much they received. So you can see our total cost for our synthetic on the right. We ended up making about 5.7 million, but for our weekly calls, we ended up having to pay about 600,000 for those. So just for those, what I say, so that's what, about 5 million just for the ones that were closed out this week. Sorry about that. And then if we go down to the lines that were opened, the first two lines are the synthetic call put, and these will be with the expiration date of May 17th. And those straight prices are $175. So those synthetics, we want our stock price to stay above this price. And then if we go over to the right to open these, it looks like it cost us somewhere around $1.8 million to open the synthetics. Then there are 3 different weekly call lines here. However, 2 of them are the same straight prices. And those don't really match the ones at the top to be like, oh, they just rolled that one or whatever, because I mean, it adds up to the same. But if you look at the top here, it's 1,614.25, and this is 1,515.25. So they just moved 100. Oop. Yeah, they just split it up a little differently. I guess they probably did try to do something like 50-50, but it looks like they also tried to stay with some nice, not even, but like roundish holding up. Well, that's not even what I'm looking for either. Maybe it's just roundish numbers. I don't know. Like me, it would irritate me if, it was 1,502 contracts or something like that. So you can see they've all like 25, 55, but most of these are either zeros or 25s or 5s, but you don't see 1s or 2s. So it looks like they basically just try to split those between the two and then just took the extra 25 and put it on the other. And this 30, I wonder if that's just because they had extra funding that came in, so then they bought extra contracts for that. And then that's why that one's on a separate line, even though it's the same dollar amount as one of the other contracts. It's just because these are new and the other ones are old. That's my assumption anyway. It's what it appears to be, but I'm not 100%. I couldn't tell you 100% or not without actually knowing their inner workings and what they do. But anyway, so those 3 weekly call lines there, if you look over to the right, it looks like they made 335,000, somewhere around that on opening those positions. So anyway, our total cost for our total trades, we ended up bringing in $3.7 million for AMZ for this week. If I move over here to the holdings here, we see our new synthetic positions there, and we see that we have two strike prices. We have the 180 and the 182.50. So AMZ ended up closing at 23.44, and Amazon's at 178.22, which is perfect. Looking over here, it's above our synthetic price, but it's below our weekly price. So it's in that window there. So it's looking good. So right now, from our maximum strike price, which is 182.50, we're $4.25 from that. And I know it was mentioned something about, well, is that good or is that bad? Well, I don't know, right? I don't really know how all of these work, or not all of these work, but like any catalyst that any of these are come up, almost all of these have done earnings at this point, but anything can happen from one day to another that can make these things fly or not, right? And I assume you would assume that one person, a fund manager, people that are making these trains and going out there and doing this, they're looking out there to see where people, are expecting to buy and not in those different zones, So it's just sort of I know there's some kind of art to it, but it's also a guess at the same time. And you just hope that you're right, more times than you're wrong. Which, of course, I guess I've heard too, well, sometimes it just takes being wrong one time to wipe out all the rights you did. So maybe that's the wrong words. I guess I'm new to all of this. So forgive me. But let's move on. So we went over those. We went over our distances between our Amazon price and that. And then you see all the shares outstanding and stuff if you want to look at that there. Oh, okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to close that at all. Okay, so we'll go over to our trades and we'll move on to our next one because this video is already way too long and we've barely even started. Sorry for closing that. So we have Aptly there. It looks like we have, so we're just looking at our weekly calls. The ones that expired this week were closed out for 1 or 2 cents over there, so that's great, right? The smaller the number that we have to pay to close them out, the better. And then the next two lines after that are our weekly calls for next week, so they'll expire next Friday, March 8th. And it looks like they rolled them over to the same strike price, so they're 182.50. And it looks like Apple itself's at 179.66. So yeah, I guess we'll see it on the other tab, but we're almost $3 away from that. But from what I've seen, Apple doesn't tend to move that big, but there just hasn't been much going on with those. But anyway, so our total trades there, we've brought in $225,000 for Apple. We move over and we look at our holdings. We will see our new weekly call over here on the right with the 182.50 strike. But then we can see we have our synthetics that are 190. So we talked about this earlier, right? We want our share price to be above the synthetic, but below the strike price. But in this case, we are below our synthetic. And so if you actually look at those synthetic lines, you can see that if we had to close those two out, that would cost us $3 million to close those out right now. But we still have a couple of weeks. Will it go up? I don't know. Will it go up enough so it's cheaper for us to close them out? Let's hope so, at least. So, but anyway, so moving on, Aptly itself closed at $17.95. Of course, this says the NAV's $18.01 there. So there's like a 6-cent difference there. And we're about $2.84 from our strike price for Aptly. So we're going to move on to Coney, and it looks like Is this the one? I talked about this yesterday. Okay. So this was the one thing that I needed to mention in here that I had reached out to Jay about. So yesterday we talked about Coney, and I had noted on here that we had trades missing because I could tell that the strike price had changed, like, because it was significantly more than what it was normally. But it showed we didn't have any trades, so I reached out after I finished the video last night, and I don't know, somewhere between 10 and midnight, I don't even know now. I emailed Jay, and I don't know, within minutes he responded to my email. He has been really, I've been bugging him a lot. He's never heard from me before, and then in the last, I don't know, 24, 36 hours, he's probably gotten 10 emails from me. But he did inform me that it looked like there was a problem with the daily upload. And it was a little bit too late for them to try to get that fixed, unfortunately. So he did apologize for that. So I just wanted to let you know about that I did reach out to him about that. However, retire on dividends, what he ended up doing this morning, because he's keeping up with the cost and the trades, and he's trying to show you about what he thinks, where they stand as far as how much income was made and about how much per share that is based on the outstanding shares at the time, right? And it's constantly changing, and it makes it hard for him to do when you don't know what the trade costs were. So in this case, since we didn't have those and there was no way we were going to get them, he went back and then, just sort of looked about like what it would have cost yesterday at a certain time, about what it would cost, since he or sort of estimated it. So I asked him, and he said I can use the numbers that he came up with, and I'll add them to this spreadsheet later. Even though I know I'm not coming up with the estimate this month, so I can have it here as I try to build this and figure out how to build my workbook. I'll still at least have these numbers, but I'll just make sure I'll have a note with them that we know that they're not, the exact numbers, but at least it'll have something here. So I did want to mention that and how I'd reached out about that one. So this one shows that we didn't have any trades today, and that makes sense because we actually had the trades yesterday. So if we look here at Coney, we closed today at 24.64. Coin closed at 205.77. We are above our $200 strike price, and we are below our weekly call strike price of 240. And this contract will expire next Friday, and we are $34.23 away from that strike price. So I don't know. We'll see how Bitcoin and how Coinbase do this next week. And honestly, like on some of these, I could give you my opinion on whether I think it's good or not. But hey, what do I know? As far as I'm concerned, the fund manager knows more than I do here, right? Absolutely, 100%. They know more than I do on all of these, and they have the data, and there's a reasoning behind what they do, and they're not just pulling numbers out of thin air. There's not. I wouldn't do that in my job. I wouldn't just pull numbers. Oh, you need this, how much money? Oh, well, I'm just going to give you this because this is what I think I should do. No, there's going to be rhyme and reason to things. And in these cases, my opinion is whatever calls they make are the best calls at the time that they made them. So anyway, we're going to move on to Dizzo. Dizzo is, let's see, so they closed out. So we had two expiring that expired with those straight prices, the 109 and 110. So they closed both of those out, which were 800 contracts total. And then now we have next week, new weekly call, but only one strike price of 114 for those 800 contracts. But because we did close at we were about 112, but we were over the strike prices. I know we were over the day before. Ended up costing us money to close those out. So in the end, we ended up paying about 150,000 there for all of these trades here. If we go back over here to holdings, we'll see that Dizzo here price closed at 2206, and like we said, Disney's at 111.95. So we are $2.05 away from our weekly call strike price of 114. But we are over our synthetic price, so we're in between those two there. And then we'll go on to Meta. And then Meta here, you see the closing out of the ones that expired on Friday. And that was 855 contracts. And now we have 855 contracts that will expire next Friday, March 8th. And the strike price for that one is going to be $510. They ended up making more money on next week's weekly call than it did to cost them to close those out. So our total trades ended up making $271,000 for those. If we move over to our holdings here, it looks like we had already had 10 shares at the 500 strike price, so we'll have 2 strike prices there. But we're looking at that. We closed Meta at 502.30, so we're actually over that by $2.30 for those 10 contracts. So it's showing you here it would actually cost us $9,000 if we wanted to close those out on Friday. But for our other strike price, it has most of our contracts at 510. We are $7.70 from that. And Phoebe itself closed at 24.23. So we move over here to GUI, which has just been going down this past week. We closed out our expiring option there. It cost us 1 cent to close that out, so a whole $100 for 100 contracts, and opened a new position at the strike price of 141 for the same 100 contracts, bringing in $7,000. So if we go over to our holdings here, so we have our synthetic is 150. We have 2 weekly calls of 140 and 141. Our shares are about split between the two. We closed at 137.14. So we are not above our synthetic, which we would like to be, and it closes in 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks now. But we're not obviously above our weekly calls yet for next week, so that's good. So to our first strike price, we're almost $3 away, and almost $4 away from our other strike price for our weekly calls. And then GUI ended up closing at 16.51. So if we go to JPMO, our expiring weekly calls have been closed out. It cost us roughly $5,000 to close those out. Well, it looks like we closed at 185.29, but we had a strike price of 185 and 187.50. So I'm guessing we were over our strike price when they closed that, because it cost them 47 cents to close those a share. And the other one, the 187.50, they only paid 2 cents a share to close that one out. So, but then those 430 are moved to next week for Friday at a strike price of 187.50. But we brought in a total of about $29,000 for those trades for JPMO. Again, eventually I will have a cumulative tab that will show the total trades for these and the income that they've made. So we go here, JPMO. We have our synthetic position. Our strike price is 185, and Our current close price is 185.29, so we're above that, so that's good. And then our weekly call is 187.50, and we're below that currently, so that's good. But we're about $2.21 from that strike price. JPMO ended up closing at $21.19. So we're going to move on to mRNA. I feel like that one's been moving a lot up and down this week. It can't make up its mind. If we look here, we closed out our weekly call that expired for 2 cents a share. And then we opened up a weekly call expiring next Friday. For the total call, well, those ended up bringing in $208,000 for those. And if we move over to our holdings, I can't even think, sorry. It's getting too late for me now. So Murny closed at $20.13. Moderna closed at $95.06. Our synthetic position that closes in 2 weeks is at 105. We're $10 below that, and we should be above it normally. We would want to be above it. But our weekly call is $100, and we are not above that one. So that's good for that one. Just looking, so that means for that synthetic, because we are $10 below it right now, it would cost us $2 million to close that one. All right. Let's hope things get better over the next couple of weeks. We can look over here and we can see that we're $4.94 away from our strike price, our weekly strike price there for next Friday. So we're going to move over to MSFO. MSFO, we closed our weekly call that expired on Friday, $417.50. We actually closed at $415.50. So our cost per share was low to close it out. It was at 4 cents whenever they closed it. And then those 820 were split up for the next week into 2 different strike prices that expire on Friday. We have a 420 with 300 contracts and 422.50 for 520 contracts. And all they brought in 144K for those trades. So if we look over at our holdings, so we have those 2 new ones for our weekly calls there, and then we already had one at $412.50 for 20 contracts, which actually we closed at $3 more than that on Friday. So I guess we'll see how that goes next week. Right now it looks like it would cost us $6 a share to close those out. And our synthetics actually 420, and we're below that by $5. So that's not the way it should be above that. As a reminder, it should be above that. But MSFO closed at $22.91, and of course we already said Microsoft closed at $415.50. So we're over our first strike, we're $4.50 from our next strike, and we're $7 from our next strike. So a few different levels there to work on. So then we'll go over to Misty. And so on this one, I highlighted the fact that they closed some positions. So you still see that they have these synthetic positions here for the 28th, but now they're like an odd number. They have 72 because they ended up having to sell one share or one contract of these. Sorry. I wonder if that's my word that I put over here, because I know on the other tab, shares is what's on their thing. yeah, over here, yeah, there's actually says quantity slash par value. I retyped that over here and actually put contracts because I know there was a question yesterday about contracts versus shares. But of course, on the other tab, the share column is actually what they wrote in there as the header instead of contracts. But anyway, sorry, was looking off there. Interesting. And I didn't copy them over here, but we talked about Misty yesterday, and I had noted on those how you know, we opened $1,000 strike price, we closed the $1,000 strike price, and then we had opened the $1,000 strike price again, and we lost money in those trades, right? And then so this last time to open these last five, it cost us 15,000, or we brought in 15,750, and then to open those that closed today, and so then today to close those, it cost us over $24,000. So that we lost money on that one. So you can see here, if you didn't see that here, that first one we got 12, but then paid 45 to close, so we lost. Let me do math. 33, 32, 6, and then here we received 15, but then I don't remember what I just said it was that we paid to 19, 23, 24,000. But we only got 15. So again, that costs us now around 9,000 plus the other 35,000. So all of those, yeah, I don't know. And I know retiring dividends mentioned it too. Wasn't sure why. I don't know if they just thought they were going to get lucky because they were around the 1,000. I don't really know what happened there, because the other ones that they had just opened were, like hundreds of dollars away. So I don't know. But anyway, I just wanted to point that out so you could see that and how that head went down. They tried. It didn't work though. But anyway, so those were closed out. And then they opened up this one for 4 because they had to close that one. And then we have these 4. They moved to expiration next Friday at $1,230 strike price. So in all, these trades ended up costing $3,000. So if we go over here to Misty, it closed at $26.55. Pretty sure this is the one that just came online, not this week, but last week. And it's already, I'm pretty sure. If not, it was the week before, but it hasn't been out but a couple of weeks. And but anyway, it's already at $26.55. But of course, we know this is because of Bitcoin and the volatility in the bull run coming up on that one. But anyway, so MicroStrategy closed at 1079.39, and we are above our synthetic, which is 950. And then we have 3 different weekly calls. We have 1230, 1350, and then 1430, which is where most of our contracts are. So to our max strike price compared to our closing price, we're $350 away from that one. But our lowest strike price we're $150 from. So we have a different range there. Really large numbers compared to what we usually see. So then we'll move on to Nefli here. So our Nefli trades, so I don't know if these were fully closed out. I'm going to assume so here. We'll see it when we go over there. Because you see here, they've closed out 600 synthetics, and then they've opened up new synthetics for May 17th that are 600. So if you look over here on the right to close out the March 15th synthetics, they made about $1.8 million there. And then to open the new synthetics, I feel like my thing just dimmed up, and now it got bright again. To open these synthetics here, it ended up costing about $660,000. And then all of these three are the ones that expired on Friday. It looks like it ended up closing $8,700 or whatever to close those out. What did I say? Yeah, 870,000. I think I said 100. But anyway, let's look at those. That's because if we look, the reason those cost so much, our straight prices were $595, $600, and $615. And over on the left, it says that Netflix closed at almost $620. So we were past all of them. Maybe not when they closed them, but in the end of the day, we were past all of them. So that's why those were so expensive to close out. But luckily, they made some money selling that synthetic over there. But anyway, then they opened up a contract for next Friday. The straight price is $630 there. And so our total trades, he still ended up bringing in $510,000. And we can see over here that our synthetic is 610, which we are above right now. And our weekly is 630, which we're currently below, but only by $10.66. If we look here, Nestle ended up closing at $19.15. Dang, I keep pushing the wrong buttons. I'm not thinking through the actions that I'm doing at this point. Sorry. It is 2 o'clock in the morning here. So we're going to move on down to NVIDIA. So we see all of our weekly calls with the March 1 expiration date. Those were all closed out. Anywhere from 16 cents a share all the way up to $10.70 a share. Our strike prices ranged from $8.10 to $8.35, and NVIDIA closed at $822.79. I guess our Hail Mary is these they were a low number of contracts, so they didn't cost that much to close out because there wasn't a lot of them, and where most of our contracts were sitting were at that higher strike price. So we did not go over that, so that ended up only costing us 16 cents to close those out. So that was actually really good. That was Hail Mary. But anyway, you can see where all those were rolled. So that's why there's 4 lines at the bottom here that match the number of contracts at the top. However, if you look at the strike price, it's all one strike price, $850. So all in all, they made $2.1 million on these trades for the day. So if we go over to NVIDIA here, NVIDIA ended up closing, at $30.36. That might be higher. I could be wrong. It might be higher than Coney got. I don't know. I know Coney got right there at $30, but I don't really know if it went too much higher before it crashed down. But that's pretty cool to see another one get that high. It really is. You never know. NVIDIA, we're like that $822.79. So we actually have 2. So we had 45 contracts at $825. So we are only $2 and something cents from that one. And then we have our 850 weekly call there, and we're $27.21 away from that. And then of course we have the synthetic of $7.10, which we are above by $100 and something there. So we're going to move on to OARC, and I'm probably going to have to pick this up or my iPad may die before I finish. So OARC here, they closed out the synthetic positions. I could tell by looking at them, that had to be all of them because there are 13,685 contracts. closing out that synthetic position, they actually made almost, what is that, $3.3 million over there. But if we look at the synthetic they had to open, I feel like it's always a wash. I don't even know why I really tried to try to see which one is better than the other, because if one's great, the other one's going to be bad. But anyway, the new synthetic that they opened, if you look over there, oh, too much math tonight, 4. It looks like it costs about 2.4 to open. And then we have our expired weekly contract, and then our new weekly contract, or weekly call there. And to close the old one and open the new one, it was almost a wash. I say almost, but it cost them around $79,000 to close and open that. But our old straight price was $50.50, and we were over that one for days. But this next week's will be $52, and the total trades for that day, we ended up bringing in $711,000. So if we go over here to our holdings, we can see our new weekly strike price there of $52. Our synthetics are 50, so we are above our synthetic and below our weekly call. Even though it's only by 50 cents. 86 cents. We're in that sweet spot right now in between the two. And then OARC itself ended up closing at $13.60. We're going to move on to PayPal and PayPay. So PayPay ended up closing their weekly call with a $61 strike price, and they paid 8 cents a share to close that one. And then they opened up 2 weekly calls for next week. They split the shares, and then they have 2 different strike prices. So they have a $62 and a $63 strike price. In total, they ended up bringing in $65,000 for those shares. For those purchases. You go see over here our new weekly calls there. You do see the synthetic though is $65. And we are below that, and we really should be above it. So you can look at a cost. It would cost us over $700,000 to close that because we are below it. So that's why that's bad. If we go above it, then we make more money. Same thing with our weekly call. We make more money if we stay below it. If we look over here, PayPay closed at $18.65. PayPal at $60.54. We are $1.46 from the first strike price and $2.46 from the second strike price. We're going to move over to Block and Squee, SQY. They closed out the expiring weekly call. Cost about $4,000. It was only a penny a share. It's because it was 84, and it ended up closing at 79.25. And then the positions for next week, they've split those up there pretty evenly, and they have an $82 and an $83 strike price. Overall, they ended up bringing in $346,000 for these trades. We go over here, we can see on the holdings our new weekly call strikes and our synthetic. And we're not above our synthetic yet, but we're pretty close. We're at 79.25, so we're 75 cents from that. If you looked at it, it still cost us about somewhere around $200,000 to close those out. But if you look over here, SQY closed at $23.75. And as far as Block closed at $79.25. So we are $2.75 from our first strike price and $3.75 from our second strike price. We're going to move on to Tesla. And Tesla ended up closing out the expiring position and opening up a new one. They ended up closing at $202.64. Bad for us, but great for Tesla, right? They're holding their ground and trying to stay above 200, and they've just been ranging in $4 range up and down all week. So I'm sure people are happy that they've been able to close that. It just sucked for Tesla itself. I mean, in the end, it's they still made some money by closing this one and opening the one for next week, but you see I have it highlighted in yellow over here. It cost almost 13 million to close this. $3 a share. So next week we're at 205 straight price. So but we ended up bringing in 15 million for that one, so we ended up having a profit of 2.1 million. If we look over here, we see we have that one weekly call strike price, but we have two synthetics. We have the 185 and the 220. Obviously, we're above one and not the other. But Tesla itself, I mean, it closed at $19. It's been, ever since the reverse split, it's just been steadily going up. But, Tesla, it's been going up, right? So it's going up. If it was going down, it'd be going down. I know we still have people, I don't know if they're just new or what, that still don't understand that. And unfortunately, I don't know, just lots of stuff I'm not going to get into with Tesla, though. Yeah. We're $2.36 away from that straight price, and we covered all the rest of that. So we're going to move on to Zomo. Let's see if we had any trades. I don't know where we were at. So no trades, no trades, no trades. And then we'll cover that in our next video. So we're going to go to our holdings. So Zomo, this is just a recap for the rest of these. So, and if you don't want to recap what we had already gone over, it's all good. But for those that may have not seen this yet, I'm just going to go over it. We have Zomo. It actually ended up closing at $17.68 on Friday. Exxon closed at 105.84. We are above our synthetic strike price of 100, but we are above our first our first weekly call with a strike price of 103, which is where most of our contracts are at, like 1,135, and we're over it by $3 going into the week. So I guess we're hoping it's going to come back down. Because our other one, we only have 40 contracts with that strike price of 107. And this one has been like at or over its strike price for the last couple of weeks. And it was like that probably for the couple of weeks before that, with a little break in between. This one's been a frustrating one for myself. But anyway, we are $1.16 from that 40 contract strike price of 107. And then if we go down to YMAG, it ended up closing at $21. And if we go to YMAX, it ended up closing at $21.67. So I talked about this before. The goal, obviously, during the week would to have shorter videos. I just got to figure out exactly what I need to talk through when I'm doing the regular daily video versus what I might need to do as far as education, going over more in details in a separate video where we're not wasting that time doing it every day, but in having those shorter videos during the week, but then understanding that on the weekend, there's almost going to be no choice but to do a longer video because there are so many trades and there's so many ETFs, and I'm trying to provide as much data for all of these because a lot of you hold a bunch of these out there, and I'm sure y'all aren't wanting to go out there and pull all the data for all of them. So that's what I'm doing, is I'm pulling in all of the trades, all of the holdings here, and then just going ahead and pulling in a few other things, right, as far as where we closed at, so we can compare, well, where are we going, what's the difference, and just sort of look at, if you want to see the net asset value, net assets, your outstanding shares, all that other stuff in here. So that's where this workbook is at right now. Hopefully, though, it will be going even better places in the future. It's just going to take some time to get there, around my full-time job and my part-time job and my family. But my iPad is about to die, and when I left Drill today, I left my charger at Drill. So I will not be able to record the ULTY video. I will get that done though. It's looking like it'll be tomorrow. And then I have a few things to share with you, with some conversations that I've had with Jay, back and forth through email. So just few new things that we don't see in the regular Yieldmax. These single ticker ETFs or single stock ETFs that we will see differently on the ULTY ETF. But anyway, thank you for those of you that have stuck around this long, and I greatly appreciate all of you. And I hope all of y'all have a great weekend. Bye.